the summer of 1947, the man behind one of the world's greatest car companies wasn't standing in a factory. He was sitting in a prison cell in France, 20 months with no trial, waiting to learn if he'd ever be free again. His name was Ferdinand Porsche, and the sports car brand carrying his name today almost never existed at all. This is the true story of how a car company was built, not in a boardroom, but in the shadow of a prison sentence, a stolen design, and a family with a very complicated past. Ferdinand Porsche was born in 1875 in a small town in what is now the Czech Republic. His father was a tinsmith. Nobody expected the boy to become one of the greatest engineers of his time. Here's a fact that surprises a lot of people. Porsche never went to university. He taught himself. As a teenager, he rigged up electric lighting in his family's house, at a time when almost nobody in his town had ever seen electricity used that way. By the age of 25, Porsche had built something remarkable, an electric car with a small motor built directly inside each wheel. No gearbox, no chain. He later added a small petrol engine to help charge the batteries as it drove. In doing so, Porsche had built one of the world's very first hybrid cars in the year 1900, over a century before hybrids became common on our roads. By the 1930s, Porsche had built a reputation as one of the finest engineers in Germany. And in 1934, Germany's government gave him a very specific task: design a small, cheap, reliable car that ordinary families could actually afford. The car he designed had a rounded shape, an air-cooled engine at the back, and a simple, sturdy build. Today we know it as the Volkswagen Beetle. It went on to become one of the best-selling cars ever made. But here's where the story gets genuinely controversial. Years earlier, a Jewish engineer named Joseph Ganz had already been designing and writing about almost exactly this kind of car. Small, light, rear engine, affordable for ordinary workers. Ganz ran an influential car magazine and pushed these ideas loudly, years before Porsche's version appeared. In 1933, Ganz was arrested by the Gestapo on charges that were later shown to be false. In 1934, he fled the country for good, the very same month that Hitler personally handed Ferdinand Porsche the job of designing the car we now call the Beetle. Some historians argue Ganz never received proper credit for his role in shaping that idea, partly because, unlike Porsche, he was Jewish, and the regime had no interest in crediting him. Porsche's supporters disagree and point out he'd already been developing small car concepts of his own for years beforehand. Either way, it's a debate that still divides automotive historians today. There's a second dispute too. A Czech car maker called Tatra accused Porsche of copying design details from their own rear-engine cars. Tatra even sued. The lawsuit was quietly dropped once Germany invaded Czechoslovakia in 1939. After the war, Volkswagen ended up paying Tatra a legal settlement anyway, decades later, in 1965. It's worth being honest here. This is a genuinely complicated chapter. Porsche personally accepted an honorary SS rank and a state award directly from Hitler in 1938. His engineering skill was placed in the service of a regime responsible for horrific crimes. That history isn't a footnote, it's part of the real story, and it caught up with him not long after the war ended. When the war ended in 1945, the world Porsche had known collapsed around him. French authorities arrested him, along with his son Ferry and his son-in-law Anton Piech. They were held on suspicion of war crimes. Ferry was released after a few months, but Ferdinand, now in his 70s, was moved from prison to prison in France. Baden-Baden, then Paris, then Dijon. 20 months passed. He was never formally convicted of anything, but for a long stretch, nobody could say when or if he'd be freed. While his father sat in that cell, Ferry Porsche didn't wait around. He moved what remained of the family's engineering business to a small converted sawmill in the Austrian town of Gmünd. And there, with almost nothing, he began building a car of his own. He called it the 356. It was light, simple, built almost entirely by hand, with an aluminium body. It used many parts borrowed from his father's old Volkswagen design. It wasn't built to make history. It was built, in large part, to earn enough money to help free his father from that French prison. On the 1st of August, 1947, Ferdinand Porsche finally walked free. His son's small hand-built car had helped make it possible. Porsche lived just long enough to see his son's creation succeed. He examined the 356 closely and reportedly said it was very close to the car he himself would have built. He died in 1951 at the age of 75, only a few years into the company's new life as a true car maker. Now here's a small detail most drivers never think about. That black horse standing proudly in the center of every Porsche badge isn't just decoration. It comes directly from the coat of arms of the city of Stuttgart, where the company is based. The city's very name is believed to come from an old German word meaning stud farm, a place where horses were once bred and raised. Ferry Porsche simply placed that historic symbol at the heart of his father's name and turned it into one of the most recognized badges in the world. Here's something that might surprise you. For decades, many engineers believed Porsche's most famous design decision was actually a mistake, putting a heavy engine behind the rear wheels instead of at the front made the back of the car unusually heavy, pushed the car hard into a corner, and rival engineers warned it could suddenly snap sideways with almost no warning. Some even called it dangerous. But Porsche built its cars this way anyway, and in 1963, they unveiled the model that would carry this idea into history. They called it the Porsche 901. Posters had already been printed. Metal badges had already been stamped. Then, at the Paris Motor Show, everything changed. The French car maker, Peugeot, objected. They claimed they owned the legal rights in France to any three-digit car name with a zero in the middle, and they had no intention of sharing it. Rather than fight an expensive legal battle, Porsche made one small but brilliant change. They simply changed the final digit. The 0 became a 1. And just like that, the 901 became the 911. The very design that critics believed would fail became one of the most successful and enduring sports cars ever built. More than 50 years later, Porsche still hasn't abandoned it. There's one more fact worth knowing. Just 5 months after Ferdinand Porsche died, in 1951, one of his son's small 356 sports cars was entered into the toughest motor race in the world, the 24 Hours of Le Mans in France. It won its class on the very first attempt. That single-class win in 1951 was the beginning of something extraordinary. To this day, Porsche has won that race outright 19 times, more overall victories than any other car maker in the race's entire history. Sadly, Ferdinand Porsche never lived to see any of it. It's a strange thing to think about. One of the world's most desirable sports car brands began in a converted sawmill, funded in part to free a father from a French prison cell, built on a car design still disputed by historians today. Porsche's story isn't a simple, clean tale of pure triumph. It carries real weight, real controversy, and a past the company itself doesn't hide from. But out of that difficult period came a small, hand-built car, made by a son determined to keep his family and his father's legacy alive. Ferdinand Porsche built engines for a government that history judges harshly, on a design whose true origins are still argued about today. But it was his son, working with almost nothing in a small Austrian sawmill, who built the car that carries the family name proudly on roads all over the world.